welcome the Director of Music Licensing for YouTube Global, Christoph Müller. Please also welcome the CEO of Applause Entertainment, former Star TV colleague, as we say about most people in the room, Samir Nair. The CEO of ESL Turtle Entertainment. If you Google this guy, it says he runs the biggest esports company in the world. First time at All That Matters, Ralf Reichart. And then finally, the man with the most impressive resume of anyone out of all of our speakers. Read it, it's amazing. Please go crazy. He's back for a second year. President of Fox Sport Asia, Italo Zanzi. Oh. Gentlemen.
Good morning.
All good?
Good morning.
Welcome to Singapore. Now, Ralf, you just got off a plane at 6 o'clock this morning.
That is correct.
Okay, so we'll start with you. Ralf, we have a wonderful packed crowd here. A lot of people starting to understand what's going on with gaming. But what do you tell your parents or your family that you do for a living?
Well, nowadays I can tell the truth, right? 20 years ago when we started with this gaming esport thing, then I still needed to say to them, hey, we're doing the same thing as the football guys are doing, just with video games. And yeah, it took them a while to believe it, then to understand it, but nowadays it's the new normal.
So give us some of the numbers, so the events that you do. So you produce big live esports events, right?
Yeah, we do. We build stadium events around esports. Just a recent one we did in Cologne, which is our hometown, had 15,000 people. 15,000. 15. Sold out Lanxess Arena, which is the second largest arena in Central Europe. We usually have somewhere between 5 to 20 million unique viewers watching from home, mainly through streaming platforms, Twitch, Kevin is speaking after us, YouTube, and a few others, Twitter, Facebook. Yeah, and it creates hundreds of millions of social engagements. Yeah, and it's a sport of the digital generation. It's in terms of size locally in most of the European markets, somewhere top 2, top 3. Football is still bigger, but anything else is probably already past.
Well, we're very grateful for you for coming all this way and getting off a flight at 6 o'clock this morning. So maybe we should be getting the Red Bull going.
Yeah, coffee is fine too, but Red Bull is good too.
Samir, it's your first time at All That Matters, yep. So I'm very grateful for you coming from India. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What have you been up to for the last couple of years?
Well, actually, I've been, to answer your question, what I tell my family, I've been a storyteller all my life, and luckily for me, nothing's changed. So I'm still telling stories in all these years. What's happened is that we used to tell stories of a different type before, and now mediums have changed, audiences have changed, but we're still telling stories. And in many ways, actually, the content business or marketing or sales, or if you take an Enron type example, then finance, is all storytelling. Good storytelling, clever, inventive storytelling. So that's what I've been doing.
Now, you mentioned to me last night that you're just about to release something quite interesting in India.
We've actually gotten the rights for The Office, the BBC show The Office, and we are producing the American version, the Michael Scott version. So we've shot season 1 and 2. We've set it in outskirts of Delhi with a Punjabi Michael Scott. His name is Jagdeep Chadda, and the company's name is Wilkins Chawla, as compared to Dunder Mifflin. So it's really turned out really well. I
think you've just sold it as well. 20%. That's all.
Okay.
I can't. I mean, talking about it last night, I thought it just sounded absolutely fantastic. Now, Christoph,
yep.
You're back for the first time in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I was here in 2014 last time.
Standing on this very stage.
Thank you very much for inviting me back.
It's brilliant.
Super exciting to be here.
Tell us what you're up to, what you're doing, what your role within YouTube, and.
So I head up global licensing for YouTube Music, and what I tell my kids I do is I make sure that the music they want to listen is on the platform, because it doesn't just happen by chance. It's there backed by licensing agreement, whether you know, with the labels or the publishers. So, and they're pretty proud they do that, they make it happen.
It's a pretty cool job.
It's nice.
Well, thank you so much for coming back, and obviously we have a very big relationship with YouTube as well, and so we're looking forward to the
13-year-olds, right? Like,
well, everyone knows that Music Matters launched the same year as YouTube and has had exactly the same growth. I say that every year, so it's not as funny. Okay, now we've got the local boy going last. Italo, please tell everyone what you're up to, what you do, who you are.
Well, first, thank you, Jasper, because you spend a lot of time saying great things about us, but I think you know, you certainly deserve the same. And we've been back several times as sponsors of your event, and really want to commend you for bringing together these different genres that are all much more interrelated than we think we are. So that's an unsolicited thank you, first of all. Second, as Fox Sports, we have I think a unique opportunity and a unique mandate to deliver to sports fans what they're looking for, and it's an ever-changing environment, an ever-changing business, but we focus on making sure that people get the best experience through sport, and that can mean live sports coverage, it can mean coverage through editorial, it can mean coverage through niche products, but we're very proud of what we've done, and we're very proud to also partner with a lot of great companies, you know, including some here on stage.
There is always that question of how do you all work together, but maybe we'll let that come through for the rest of the week. Ralph, what's the best thing in your industry, in gaming? What's the best thing you've seen all year?
I mean, the stories are really mostly about players and people, and probably, yeah, there's always three things that are best. You know, it's normal, right? So I'll do it quickly. First, we did a demonstration tournament next to the Olympics in Pyeongchang, and a girl won. So there was a StarCraft competition. It wasn't a medal sport yet, but it was won by a girl. So how many other sports can you know, claim for themselves that they have actually equality in that regard? I think point number two is the biggest Dota tournament, which has a $24 million prize pool, which is
$24 million.
2, 4, and a lot of zeros.
What's the US Open?
Sorry?
What's the US Open at the moment, Italo, on Fox Sports? What's the prize pool? Can you remember?
Making sure it's US dollars, right?
It is US dollars. It's no. So that's and there was this Cinderella story of two young guys, friends for years, and always played on the same team, and split up 3 months before the tournament, and then met again in the finals, and the guy who was left behind actually won. So, you know, that's huge material for a Cinderella story, you know, a Netflix original documentary. So that was just mind-blowing. And probably the last thing is that you know, games, it's called Battle Royale for the ones who don't know. It's Fortnite and PUBG, and we'll have the CEO of PUBG afterwards, have really, you know, democratized this whole thing. They've become so big. I mean, both of these games together have probably 200 million people playing them every month. So
200 million.
200 million. And it's still growing. So it's, you know, gaming is about to become the largest entertainment media on the planet, if it's not already. And that's happening with new genres and the ever-going inspiration, the ever-going, you know, new game titles and new game genres coming up. So that is exciting.
So yeah, as Ralph said, the CEO of PUBG is here today, and he's being interviewed by the COO of Twitch. So that's going to be pretty fascinating stuff, and hopefully they keep throwing out these amazing numbers. Christoph. Mm-hmm. From a YouTube perspective, or a music perspective, or even a Google perspective, what's the best thing you've seen all year?
I think what's been really, really exciting is the continuous growth of subscription when it comes to music specifically. You know, like 2016 was really the tipping point when the recorded music industry revenue started growing again for the industry, and there were some questions about, is this just you know, a kind of one-time thing? But no, it's here, and it's here to stay. And it's really, really impressive to see that growth continuing. And when it comes to YouTube, we now are also launched in 21 markets globally with subscription. So, and there's more to come. So that's really exciting. It drives more value to the industry, gives users more choice, and we're very excited about that.
I mean, it really is an extremely healthy music economy right now, isn't it?
It's growing really fast, and you know, frankly, when it comes to YouTube, we believe we have with 1.9 billion, you know, monthly active unique users.
1.9 billion.
Correct.
So we've got a cage fight going between Ralph and Christoph now.
I have to say, I'm really impressed with some of these numbers. But even on the platform, like I'm gonna make a side comment for now. Like outside of music, gaming is incredible. Like, it's kind of one of the only area where you see so many people connecting at the same time. There was this example of a gamer on the platform, Rubios, that got over 1.1 million concurrent stream just from his bedroom. You know, like it's just like amazing. So this fan, like engagement happens on the platform across all categories and on gaming, but also music. And we're really looking forward to convert, all the people that are coming to the platform and give them more choice and, enable them to enjoy music through a better, most optimized experience and drive more value back to the industry, because that is important too, to the artists and the songwriters.
I've noticed, I don't need to declare our relationship. We do the YouTube Fan Fest with you, and the first ever YouTube Fan Fest was in this ballroom 5 years ago.
Exactly, 2013. Yeah.
What I've noticed in this part of the world is the rise of local. So it started 5 years ago. The fans wanted international content, but now in so many markets like India, Indonesia, I'm seeing that it's the local stars are really overtaking.
Yeah, and they're getting a global audience, right? But just going back to YouTube Fan Fest, who you know very well, and we'll be partnering very closely with you on this, it's been a concept that we exported. It's now like more than 40 instances where we've done actually YouTube Fan Fest events, including in the Middle East and Brazil, in the US and Canada, and it started here, right? So like that, we're obsessed with fan. We're obsessed with driving better user experience so that fan can engage more with all categories of content, including music on the platform. And it's really to see them coming through together with these events where they can just share their love for the creators that are on the platform.
Cool. So Samir, what are some of the great things you've seen in your industry in India or elsewhere this year?
Well, actually, this week is, almost to the date, is the 10th anniversary of Lehman.
It's Monday.
2008, 10 years on. And 10 years ago, the big deal was fuel and TV in many places. TV was still big, and of course, fuel. I just saw a list of the top 10 companies from then to now, and it's changed completely in 10 years. The big thing that happened in India in the last 1 year, really revolutionizing for our industry, was the arrival of Reliance Jio. And they sort of essentially came and crashed the data price in India. It's gone, I think, from about 2-3 years back to about $3 for a GB to now like 10-15 cents for 10 GB. It's really gone through the roof. Now, what it's done for India is, of course, that combining with the devices that have grown in the last 10 years and all of the social media and all of the YouTube and the connectivity and the cheap data now, that's been the sort of, the wow moment in the last 1 year, that it's really sort of blown through the roof.
And I have to say, this is, if I may, it's been amazing just to see the impact that this had on consumption of content. I don't know what it was 4 years ago when it was here last, but from a YouTube perspective, 5 of the top 10 countries in terms of watch time are now from the region. And it's
And because India is a market that sort of, we've leapfrogged, so we never had the landline. So most Indians don't get the answering machine gag because they never had a landline. So it's gone directly to mobile, skipped past a computer as well. And now with connectivity, you're talking about whatever, 900 million phones, about 400 million smartphones, getting to about 400 million 4G connections. That's a lot of people staring at screens, consuming data really cheap, and a lot of content coming through. So that's been, like last year has been this one big moment like an AC, a BCAD moment for us.
And Italo, for you, since we last saw you on stage a year ago, what's been the good stuff happening in your world?
Well, we're big proponents of sport, right? So, and we can't take for granted that sport is always going to share or have that presence of market that it has had. We think it will. So when we see success in the World Cup, we see success in the Asian Games, we see success in the upcoming Olympic Games, those things for us are very important, right? We see that people are absolutely more and more connected to sport than ever before. And those, let's say, cyclical flashpoints of interest, of nationalism, of storytelling are critical. And so if you're looking back at this past year, the success the World Cup has had, the great Asian Games that have been hosted in Indonesia, those to us are really important as these continuous igniters of that passion and of that following and of that storytelling that we're a part of, but more importantly, that supports the interest in sport and the interest in all those that invest in it.
Slightly off track, Italo, but what's the importance for Fox Sports, the importance of local versus international? Because obviously everyone wants to talk about the World Cup and EPL and stuff, but I know that local is very important to
absolutely, and we wouldn't characterize it as local versus international with respect. It's more local plus international or international plus local. We're very confident we are the standard in premium international sport, but lately, especially with the advent of our digital products, we've really developed a very, very local and local language presence in most of our core markets. And I think there's a space to play there in the sense that we're partnering with a lot of great companies locally, helping to contribute the know-how that we have and that we've experienced on an international basis, not only in terms of the media, but also hopefully in terms of actually working with the event organizers, both for, let's call it, already established sports, and also for emerging sports that have, let's say, popular following, but perhaps haven't had the investment or the marketing structure around them before. And so for us, it's a really special opportunity, and it speaks to the nature of our business in the region.
So I was introduced by my wife yesterday to a new saying, which is called the cornflakes moment. The cornflakes moment is when you're eating your cornflakes and you see something that happens that makes you drop your spoon. My cornflakes moment this year was my first esports tournament where I just jaw dropped in amazement at what was going on, and I had no idea what was going on. Very keen to know for all of you, what in the last year, what's been your cornflakes moment? What's made you go, holy Christoph?
Well, my personal cornflakes moment would probably be July 15 when France won the World Cup. That's just me, and I'm probably the only one who cares here. But joke aside, from a business perspective, I'd like to go back to what you said, Samir. It's one of our partners that reached 15 million subscribers on this channel, T-Series, right? It's now at 60 and growing 100K per year. It's just
60 million
subscribers on one channel.
60 million subscribers.
And
it's amazing.
We'll talk about this some more later today, but that was a whoa. Yeah.
Have you dropped your spoon this year?
Well, actually many times. Obviously because of, as I said, because of Reliance and all the data price, that's like we drop our spoon every 2-3 months as they keep crashing the price down. So that's been big. I think another big thing has been Netflix and Amazon in India, as in because operating at the top end of the market as they do, and all the interest they've shown in India. It's been like a couple of months back they launched their great show, Sacred Games. We've been waiting a year and a half for it, and finally it came out and sort of lived up to all the expectations. It's also a big moment because it's sort of setting a bar for what premium drama ought to be in India, where entertainment should go, what is possible, and sort of getting a large audience sort of into that. And of course, while Netflix is priced at its $10, $600 in India, the best part is that, well, not the best part for them, but all my driver and a lot of his sort of colleagues sitting around in the basement used to watch Netflix pirated. So Indians hacked it very quickly. My local video library sends me Amazon and Netflix shows available on a pen drive, says that you can take it for 50 bucks.
Which of course you don't accept.
I don't do at all. I'm anyway subscribed to it. But no, there have been a lot of such things that have been happening. In fact, in the last year, there's been lots of activity in this, between the Amazon and Netflix. Most recently, Star TV bought the rights of IPL for 16,000 crores, including the digital rights.
What's that in US?
About $3 billion.
$3
billion.
billion.
Yeah, for 5 years, as compared to what Sony had bought about $1.5 billion for 10 years. So it's like, gone 10x. It's
a big check.
Yeah, so it's a big check, and they had a great season. So, I mean, there have been many such moments. And of course, the biggest thing that happened just a few days back was that the Supreme Court upheld gay rights. So that was the absolute spoon in the conflict, jaw in the conflict, face in the conflict kind of moment for India.
Times are changing.
Times are changing.
Very exciting time. Obviously, we love doing events in India and stuff. So, as we were talking about last night. So Ralph, when did you get cornflakes in Germany?
Actually, multiple, right? So, I mean, I spoke about a few of them already. I'll take a cheesy one now.
Cheesy cornflakes?
Yeah, cheesy yeah, they taste great. No, I wasn't at an award show and was arguing with the president of the German Football Federation, who is like totally anti-gaming and doesn't understand it, and he's 60 plus, right? So that generation that probably not going to get it anymore. And then at one point, the German national team of hockey, ice hockey, who went second in the Olympics, stood up and kind of supported it and said, like, we all play video games and you have no idea what you talk about. And I was sitting there smiling and, got the point across.
Fantastic. How are your cornflakes?
So I guess for me, the biggest revelation was not to take the delivery of sports for granted. You've had a lot of major sporting events that have, fallen down, so to speak, on the delivery side in terms of their live broadcast this year. And this isn't to speak disparaging of any other company because everyone's been acting in very good faith, but I think collectively as an industry, the idea of alternative distribution means now has a much more heightened importance, right? When you have things like the World Cup, major fights, large domestic football leagues, where somebody is broadcasting a game exclusively or a match exclusively, and it can't be delivered. Like that's an oh wow and potentially different expletive moment where you say, okay, we need collectively to look at this as an industry and make sure even if we have the business, let's say, flow chart working well, we have to make sure the consumer gets what they need, which is ultimately to experience the sport. So it's something we're obviously looking into actively along with all of our colleagues in the industry. But if you look at this past year, there have been several of those moments where I think fans have been disappointed, and that's something that we can't allow to have happen.
Okay, and 2 or 3 more questions. Obviously we have a lot of programming going on across the 5 tracks for the next 3 days. I'm very keen to understand what you'd most like to, which are the kind of sessions that you'd like to be sitting in, what do you want to be listening to, whether it's in your own subject or whether it's cross-track, what do you think is going to be interesting for you, Christoph?
So it's true, like there's a lot of very interesting sessions that are planned, and I would say as far as I'm concerned, there's 2 that sort of jump out. I'm not a gamer myself, but I'm impressed with all the things that are happening there and some of the numbers you mentioned, and so I'll definitely try to learn more when I'm here about this. But the second one is a session that you have beyond the screens, like where how we make voice matter more, and from a platform perspective, it changes a lot of things. How do we think about this, when the interaction is voice driven as opposed to visually being driven visually. So that I think is very, very important for like to the future of this industry and how we consume music in that environment with like assistant and all sorts of devices that are connected. So that is a session I'm looking forward to.
Cool. Samir.
Well, actually, in this business, it's all about consumers staring at screens in front of them. And we are in one stream of it, as in, we are in the entertainment part of the business. But what I'm most curious to sort of listen and hear and see what's going on, because a lot of these things are very early in India. So like for India, stuff like esports, live streaming, things like this don't even exist, or not in a significant manner. And all of these are going to fight for share of time, share of attention, you know, all of that. So that's something that's really, I mean, interesting to see as to what people are doing, what they're thinking, how they're approaching markets. Many times we come from, you know, experience, but sometimes experience, you know, can also sort of, you know, color your views and, you know, give you that kind of slant. The other thing that's happening is that, you know, in the last 10 years, there's been this big change where we moved away from the broadcasters and the publishers and the distributors with all the rise of all the new platforms, where there was a certain degree of freedom. You know, creators felt that they could reach consumers directly and get out there, and I mean, YouTube is a great example of that. What's happened now, 10 years on, very quickly, is that there appears to be now the rise of the new gatekeeper, you know, and that's sort of something that's the new gatekeeper.
Yep.
You know, the new big boys in town who are going to want to control, you know, what people see, how they see, and you know how that works. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see what other businesses think about that and how they plan to deal with that.
Ralph, you've not been to All That Matters before. There's going to be a lot of your friends from the gaming industry, but hopefully a lot of people that you've not met before. What kind of things would you like to be learning about while you're here?
So yeah, I think first to know the whole conference, and thank you for having me in that regard. I think on the one side it's geographical, right? To understand more about, you know, the local needs, the local region. Some people from our local teams are here, just to understand the differences and similarities better than hopefully I have a basic understanding. On the other side, I mean, a lot of what we do is connecting brands to fans. You know, we have fantastic partnerships with Intel, Mercedes, DHL, and to understand more about local brands and local opportunities and what we can do. And last but not least, it goes across media, right? It's working with music, which are part of our events, and anything digital anyway, and anything broadcast. So just to connect all these dots together and to understand better what role we can play and how we can help and be helpful.
And Italo?
For me, I'm very interested in understanding more about the role that, let's say, authenticity and simplicity plays for consumers, right? Because right now you have so much available to everybody and probably cheaper, probably in a more fragmented way, but that also leads to sensory overload. It leads to practical inconvenience, and you know, in an effort to try to give fans and people what they want most, you know, there is something to be said for simplicity and for authenticity. And that's kind of a bit of a boomerang moment, I think, that we'll be looking at going forward. But to me, that would be very interesting to see play out during the conference.
There was a very interesting quote I heard from Singtel recently saying, the CEO of Singtel said he felt that fans now wanted to browse, not to search, because there is just now so much content out there. They want to get into YouTube and stay in YouTube, or they want to get into Netflix and stay in Netflix. So I think that's going to be a very interesting conversation as well. By the way, tomorrow afternoon we have a zillennial panel. I don't know if that's actually a word, but we're using it, where we have about 10 teens on stage. Now, usually teen panels don't work because they used to have a set-top box and they'd go home and watch the same stuff. Now they've got access to everything in the world. They are all addicted to their mobile phones, just as we are. And so we're going to be talking to them about how they consume media, what they do, what they don't do, and how much time they spend with their devices. In actual fact, we've asked them all to screen grab their battery use. If you look at your phones, you can actually see, it's quite frightening really, what you've done for the last 7 days and how much time you spend on your various apps. So
Will you publish yours?
Sorry?
Will you publish yours?
I'll publish mine. It says WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube, mail.
I've seen that graph.
Yeah, it's half for work though. And finally, final question. When we're sitting here this time next year on the stage, what are we going to be talking about? What's coming up this year? What are we going to be talking about in 12 months' time that may have made you drop your spoon in your cornflakes?
I don't know if it's a drop of my spoon in my cornflakes or my croissant in my coffee. But I think monetization is on the topic this year, and it's going to remain, or I think it should remain on the agenda for the future, because it's really important to continue to be able to drive more value to the industry. And the way we look at it, it's one business with a twin engine of growth. One, it's continuing to monetize better, through ads, because not everyone's going to pay, but then make sure that we're doing everything we can to convert our funnel and provide more choice to the users that want to subscribe. So I think that's really important, and the success of this strategy will, will be obviously very important for the entire music industry in the next, not just next year, but the next few years.
Cool. Samir, what are we talking about in a year's time? The success, the Emmy-winning Office India series, clearly.
Well, that'll be personal, and I'll be happy for that. But I think we'll be continuing to talk about and continue to be surprised with the extent to which streaming is going to, exponentially grow all over the world. In India, definitely. I mean, in India, it's going to be nothing short of astounding as to what's going to happen, and the extent to which traditional media is going to get affected. Maybe not next year, but in the next 5-7 years, it's a big change coming.
Cool. Ralph, what are we talking about here next year?
Similar, yeah, you're going to open the conference with that. Gaming officially is the largest entertainment platform and is taking over in terms of media consumption, all other media, and esports is the second largest sport in the world, behind football.
And we'll be coming into an Olympic year as well, right?
I mean, it was part of the Asian Olympic Games just, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So that is in the making. That is only a question if it's in the other Olympic sports. There's still some resistance, but resistance is futile.
What are we talking about next year?
Potentially the interaction between, at least in sports, between subscription and advertising-based digital distribution, right? You've got some major players in both camps making major investments. How that plays out, I think, is extraordinarily interesting, and probably there's room for an integrated approach as well. So that would be one. And two, hopefully we're sitting here talking about the great progress that's been made against piracy over this year, which is a risk to all of our industries and all of our businesses, and to the consumers.
Fantastic. Well, we're absolutely on time to the second, everyone will be pleased to hear. So what we're talking about, monetization, streaming, piracy, local content, international content, the crazy numbers in the gaming, the music industry is on fire. India is just, what an opportunity, finally coming through and finally delivering on the promise. But really, I think everything that's come through it's all about the fan, right? Without the fan, none of us are sitting here. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of the week. I hope you all enjoy their sessions for the rest of the week. But please, for now, put your hands together for Christoph, Samir, Ralph, and Italo.